This podcast episode is brought to you by Coors Light. These days, everything is go, go, go. It's nonstop hustle all the time. Work, friends, family expect you to be on 24/7. Well, sometimes you just need to reach for a Coors Light because it's made to chill. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged. It's as crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. It is literally made to chill. Coors Light is the one I choose when I need to unwind. So when you want to hit reset, reach for the beer that's made to chill. Get Coors Light in the new look delivered straight to your door with Drizzly or Instacart. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Welcome back to Keeping Karlsson Short Shift, and we are getting down to the very wire of the season. The wire of the season? I don't know. I very clearly need my co-host to hop on here with me. So my name is Ben Burnett. Joining me as always, Louis Ezekiel. Louis, my friend, are you ready to get down to the wire of the season with me?
I am all over the wire of the season. Listen, I have been coaching Little League and soccer games, and I'm like losing my mind here too. So I think we're in a similar space. Although I will say, you won't say it yourself because you're too humble, but you are having one hell of a night in the Cupful up against Elon. So I just hope that it means that on Sunday night we'll get to listen to Elon podcast while also being on full tilt about an extremely close match, because that is always very exciting.
I don't. I'm terrified of saying the wrong thing and then, being. I don't want to get plastered up on freezing cold takes tomorrow. You know what I mean? Talking about my matchup with Elon. That's the risk in talking about such a high profile fantasy hockey matchup.
Would it make you feel any better to know that nothing we say or do has any impact on what these players do?
I am aware, and I do take solace in that. Yes, thank you for that. Let's get into the show, though. Even though it's the end of the season, there is still quite a bit to talk about. So we are going to start in Toronto, where Nick Foligno is a top-line winger on the Northern Division leading Toronto Maple Leafs. Are we interested in Nick Foligno while he's on this top line?
It's always a good opportunity. I think that people will maybe lean on him a little too, or hope for a little more than they're going to be able to get out of him in this position. It's very exciting, certainly, to have him up there with Marner and Matthews, and we've seen them, be very productive today. That line has put together a couple goals. Would it shock you to know that Nick Foligno has not got in on either of them? He does have a shot and 3 hits, so he's doing his usual kind of gritty man thing. But, I like him about as much as Joe Thornton up there, which is to say I think he might be worth an ad, but I don't think that people should be expecting the world of him. Maybe a couple assists here or there if he gets a sweet setup. But I love that he did his interview in that throwback hat of his dad's, which I thought was really cool. And I love the story about him being in Toronto. I'm not getting overly excited about him as a fantasy asset in Toronto.
I'm with you in general. Yes, I'm not getting excited about Nick Foligno. I will say that Joe Thornton is like the player where I'm like, no, I'll take Nick Foligno above Joe Thornton just because Thornton is such a zero fantasy wise if he doesn't get any points. Whereas Nick Foligno has been a very valuable banger league player or streamer, at least in a lot of leagues. So I will give him that. I will. But yes, I'm not running into the streets to grab Nick Foligno because, like you say, he's not probably going to get in on a lot of goals in Toronto, and also he's probably not stapled to that top line either. I would like to move over to another top line on a contending team, the Colorado Avalanche, where Mikko Rantanen out with COVID still, or on the COVID list. I believe what has now been said is that there was a positive exposure. So I would expect him back probably, mid next week if we can go off the William Nylander timeline for being close contact of a previous case. But in the meantime, Andre Burakovsky is top line, top power play. He gets that spot fairly, a few times a season, and sometimes he's perfect, and sometimes he's not great in that spot. Tonight, though, a power play goal already. Lewis, what are your thoughts on Andre Burakovsky while he's on that top line in Colorado?
I would definitely be interested in Burakovsky over Foligno at this point if we're comparing them to one another. It's nice to have him be up there and not have it be the result of McKinnon being out potentially. I think it's good to have McKinnon up there when you're gonna have that opportunity. I think we've talked about him getting these power play one opportunities sometimes, and it's been like a bunch of attrition. Like a World War I hospital wing up there sometimes. But it's nice. So right now he's up there with Landeskog and McKinnon and Comfer. And Comfer obviously is not your top choice, and you'd rather have Rantanen there instead. But I really like that setup. And, I think that's going to be a position that he's going to be able to hopefully have some success in. And in the short term, at least until we see Rantanen again. And that might be, the remainder of the fantasy season, potentially. I think that is a really nice spot for him. And I like it a little bit more than the Foligno deployment, especially because unlike Foligno, he's getting that power play time.
Yeah, I'm super into Burakovsky. I have to say, if he is available on any waiver wires, I think he's pretty much a must grab just because it's a short rest of the season. Colorado plays throughout the finals. I think they have 4 games next week, and it's just an exciting time to have like a short-term ad like Burakovsky. If he doesn't work out, I think you're just still happy to have taken that home run swing on a player playing all of the minutes with Nathan McKinnon, right? Let's hop next over to Arizona, where I want to talk about I think the player we all agreed was the best forward in Arizona this season for most of the year, Connor Garland, now out week to week in Arizona. I have to say that this takes a lot of the fun out of streaming on Arizona because they're now kind of one of those teams where you look at this lineup and you're like, who do I want the guy? Like, what line am I sort of chasing? What exposure am I chasing? Any of these forwards in Arizona look good to you?
I mean, yeah, so your best even strength line, it looks like, is the Michael Bunting, Nick Schmaltz, Clayton Keller line at even strength. I do see that there was a guy called Lane Peterson who was available. I feel like that was mentioned maybe by Elon last Sunday. I thought I heard that Peterson come up because he mentioned the name there. It just kind of looks a little disjointed to me. I'm not really into that particular deployment. Bunting, I guess, stands out as the player that I suppose I would like to stream in. But yeah, not looking super appealing in Arizona in general, as you said. I think that loss of Garland takes away some offensive firepower. He's obviously wasn't able to maintain that torrid pace from the start of the year, but still was quite an offensive driver for them. So yeah, it really takes a lot away. It's one of those injuries where the opportunity that it opens up really doesn't make up for the fact that it's taken away a fair bit of offense.
Yeah, and I think that there is something to be said for Michael Bunting, being in that traditional streaming deployment that you're looking for, which is on that top line with Schmaltz and Keller. Those are the 2 best players now. I actually kind of like Michael Bunting. He's been good in limited minutes, and he's looked good when I've watched him. One other note I kind of wanted to mention here, and I do this, I'm taking a bullet here, because the last time that Jakob Chychrun came up on Keepin Karlsson, he instantly scored a hat trick. So I am very terrified to mention that Jakob Chychrun is off the top power play unit in Arizona. It's Oliver Ekman-Larsson playing with Kessel, Dvorak, Peterson, and Keller. There's a second unit of Brassard, Bunting, Schmaltz, Goligoski, and Chychrun playing as the second unit, which I don't understand why they would get rid of, why they would not have Jakob Chychrun stapled to the top unit, but that's what we're living with right now. I just figured it was worth mentioning. I'm terrified now of Jakob Chychrun destroying my Cupful dreams because he's been so good all year, and I'm sure that this is all he needs to notch another hat trick.
That unit did have a goal on Wednesday night, so it'll be interesting to keep an eye on. OEL obviously has been available in a lot of leagues because he has been off that top power play and hasn't been so great. I also wanted to say, Michael Bunting wise, that line really was quite productive in their deployment on Wednesday. They had 9 shots for and 4 shots against, and the shot attempts was even more pronounced. 20 shot attempts for against only 6 against. So that is some really tilting the ice in the Coyotes' favor with that line out there. So that might be something to keep an eye on if they're able to keep driving offense that way.
All right, we have 2 more stops I want to make here on the injury tour. Kasperi Kapanen back in Pittsburgh, a goal and an assist tonight, but he is playing on line 3 and power play 2 in Pittsburgh. I know he was getting power play 1 minutes before Malkin went out with an injury. Lewis, what do you think about Kasperi Kapanen in that middle 6 deployment? Do you think that he can be productive for fantasy teams down the stretch?
I mean, certainly productive in his return to play. I wonder if that's just kind of the big adrenaline rush of being back in the game. His line's doing fine, and Bluger and Zach Aston Reese have shown that they can be pretty productive, as a decent third line. I don't love it though. I think it's interesting, that he didn't return to that power play, but I don't think you mess with a good thing that you've got going with Crosby, Rust, McCann, and Gensel working so effectively. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm not surprised, I suppose, that he didn't get inserted back into his old deployment. And I am a little worried about him, but I would keep an eye on those lines because I think if he does move up the line a little bit, like that second line right now, Carter and Zucker both, I think, are vulnerable to potentially falling down the lineup a little bit. So there may be an opportunity, at least at even strength, for Kapanen to move up. I think until that happens, though, I'm not super interested in him. The Penguins have been crushing lately, but they've also been against New Jersey, who has had the worst goals, save percentage, I should say, in the league over the last 2 weeks. So I'm not, thinking that necessarily they're going to be able to keep up this torrid scoring pace when they're not playing against New Jersey every game. So what I would do is I'd be lineup watching, check out at Game Day Lines and see if Kapanen can move up to that second line at even strength, because there's been a pronounced difference in even strength deployment between those 2 lines.
One more injury over in Detroit. It's your boy, Dylan Larkin. Jeff Blashill ruled him out for at least tonight. Could be longer. But, Detroit, to their credit, did not miss a step. 4-2 over Dallas with 2 goals from your boy, Jakub Vrana. Lewis, how are you feeling about it? And I should say this is only midway through the third. But how are you feeling about Vrana?
I like him in this spot. I like that he and Mantha have both been very good for their teams. But again, I think getting Vrana, the younger guy, with an opportunity to maybe sign him and then getting those picks, still looking pretty good for Detroit. Still not great deployment, but you have to say, with Larkin out, what is good deployment exactly in Detroit? Are you looking to make sure that you're lined up with hot goal scorer Adam Ernie? So he's been on a line with Michael Rasmussen and Philip Zadina. He also played a little bit with Filppula in Zadina. So, there's not any deployment in Detroit with Larkin out that's gonna make your eyes pop.
In just a second, we'll talk about some weekend streamers. You're listening to Short Shifts.
Like any good team, hiring the right employees for your front office is just as important as recruiting the best players for the game. That's why you need Indeed. Indeed is the job site that makes hiring as easy as 1, 2, 3. Post, screen, and interview all on Indeed. Get your quality shortlist of candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description faster. Only pay for the candidates that meet must-have qualifications, and schedule and complete video interviews in your Indeed dashboard. According to Talent Nest, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined. Get started right now with a free $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Get a $75 credit at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Offer valid through June 30th. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back. Lewis, we wanted to take a look as we head into the weekend on what's semifinal week in the Cupful and most of my leagues, in fact. and take a peek at who might be some of the best streamers to look at. There are 4 teams playing on Friday and Sunday this week. Those are the 2 off nights that are remaining. So if you have a over full roster, you can't fit one of your guys on Saturday, you could drop them for a player on one of these teams and get 2 extra games played. So let's talk about these teams. They are Boston, Philadelphia, Buffalo, and New York. Lewis, I'll leave it to you. Where do you want to start?
All right. Well, let's start with Buffalo. How about?
Yeah, sure.
We'll start kind of towards the bottom of the standings, and we'll move our way up. All right, so I picked a couple from Buffalo that I was interested in, and I thought I was going to talk about Casey Middlestat, but I'm going to talk about Dylan Cousins because he has been on a nice little run here. He's had 6 assists in the last 7 games, only 4% rostered in Yahoo, so available across a lot of leagues. And I think Cousin Dave would say that he is a high DUE. He's due, man. He's had 23 shots over these 7 games with nothing to show for it. So it's nice that he's putting these assists together, but there could be a goal or 2 in there as well. So Cousins is a guy that stands out to me as being pretty interesting and widely available.
Yeah, that's a good one, and definitely is going to be available in a lot of leagues. I will say, if Sam Reinhart happens to be available at 43%, I know that's pretty widely unavailable, but there are a lot of leagues where folks maybe could grab Sam Reinhart, and that's the play. That's the main forward I would want in Buffalo with Jack Eichel out. But yes, in deeper leagues, I'm all over Dylan Cousins. I gotta say, kind of into Jeff Skinner once again. 2, 3, and 4 shots in the last 3. He's been playing a little bit more under the new coach, and I don't know. Call me crazy, but I just can't give up this Jeff Skinner thing.
Well, there's something to be said about a guy who is enjoying playing hockey again for the first time in a long time. Can't get enough of these quotes from Granato about how Jeff Skinner's out there smiling while he plays. That's great.
Hey, and what are we in this for if not for smiles? The one other name that I want to mention, though, and we talked about him the other night. I can't not bring him up. He had a bit of a tough night tonight. His first rough start in a little bit. Dustin Tokarski, 33 for 38, though. I'll give him the Benny of the D, benefit of the doubt, 868 save percentage, because they obviously got shelled by the Bruins. And I do think that he's at risk of, he's going to have some games where he has to stand on his head to get anything done. But just overall, Dustin Tokarski's been pretty solid. I have to give him a shout out. Shout out Dustin Tokarski. I believe in you. Let's go to Boston next, though, Lewis. And I'm gonna start on this one because I think that a lot of people came off Matt Grzelcyk when he was most recently injured, and a goal and an assist tonight, right back on that top power play unit. I don't think that he's going to be Torrey Krug with the consistency points wise, but he's obviously shown that he can point, he can get in on some of those top power play unit goals. So I got to give it up for Matt Grzelcyk. He deserves some respect. 34% owned, probably available in a lot of leagues.
Absolutely. And those who kept the faith with him and held on, through the injury and some concern that Mike Riley might hold on to that top power play spot were very much rewarded here on Thursday night. Riley is pretty interesting too. He's had 4 assists in 5 games with Boston. With some time remaining here still.
Yeah.
Another guy who's kind of interesting and way down at 5%, so very widely available. Another guy who is due for some scoring is Jake DeBrusk. He's only had 1 point in the last 5 games, but he's been shooting 3 shots a game on average there. He just has the opportunity, I think, to really help you if you are in a Cats league with shots as a category, or else, where shots are worth a decent amount of points. He had a 7-shot game and a 5-point game in those last 5. So if that's a category that you're chasing, you might get some scoring along with it. It hasn't been happening, but, seems like it certainly could. Jake DeBrusk might be an interesting guy for your shots leagues.
I'll take Dylan Cousins over Jake DeBrusk, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I would rather have Cousins. Yeah. I think the shooting's actually been even a little bit more frequent, and certainly has been pointing more often too. So right around the same percentage owned.
Right. And I think just too, more opportunity in Buffalo to get in a scoring opportunity. Jake DeBrusk, now that Boston has that second line with Taylor Hall, there's no room for Jake DeBrusk in the top 6. And so that's what, I hear you say he's due, but I got to say, I think he's poo.
Oh my God. It's a testament to my like current state of mind that I'm laughing at this. This is not a pity laugh. That was a legitimate chortle of glee at your ridiculous poop joke. So high five, buddy. You did it.
Let's go talk about my terrible Rangers who have lost again tonight. I got to be bummed out about that. But who do you like? And who do you like on my pitiful jurors?
So we've got a couple guys that kind of have some interesting spots right now, and I'll talk about one, and maybe you might want to jump on the other. Alexis Lafreniere, 26% owned. He got put out there with Mika and Buchnevich, and also got some time with power play too, so he kind of flipped with Kreider. He's been cold just 1 point in the last 6 games, but if you are into even strength deployment, he's certainly an interesting one and a player that shows a lot of promise, but hasn't really been able to deliver to the extent that they kind of hoped. Sort of a relapse of the Kako experience from last year. But, obviously bright things down the horizon, not a ton of real production this year, but, the options of low owned players on the Rangers are a little slimmer than with some of these other teams. So that's what I got.
They are a tough team to stream off. And, earlier, like, honestly, I looked at all of these guys before the weekend to try and see anyone I would want to target. Lafreniere, Kaapo Kakko, who's been, pretty solid this year. In terms of a middle six, they're not getting any time on ice, really. Like they're all around 9 to 11 minutes. Philip Hedl in this bunch as well. They've been kind of playing as a kid line. And it's just tough to trust them because you never know if they're going to just play 9 minutes. And Lafreniere, as nice as it is to see him get a little bit of shine on the top unit, just is not shooting. One game with 5 shots in his last 12. Every other game, 0 or 1. So he's a bit of a miracle play, I would say, and way over owned at 26%. That's got to be a keeper league glitch there because he should not be owned ahead of Colin Blackwell at 15%, for example. I definitely stream in Blackwell ahead of Lafreniere. But the player that I figured I would target here would be K'Andre Miller, who did have some PIMs tonight and put up some shots. He's been blocking a little bit. I think I would go for a peripheral player if I'm streaming off the Rangers, just because, like we said earlier, not a ton of value off the forward lines, unless you're able to cash in on some Colin Blackwell, Artemi Panarin magic happening.
All right, well, you're talking about grabbing a peripheral player. I got a nice peripheral player for you in Philadelphia, which is our 4th and final Friday-Sunday team. How about Travis Sanheim? He's only had 1 goal and 1 assist over the last 11 games, but also during that time, the dude has taken 32 shots from a defensive position. Now, seems like those are probably some reasonably low percentage shots since he hasn't only converted once on them. But that's pretty nice for your Cats league, or if you're in a league that gives you points for shots. He's also had 14 hits and 20 blocks in those 11 games. That's some very nice peripheral production for you, with the possibility that one of those shots might trickle across the goal line, or maybe someone will bury a rebound. So I like Sanheim in Philadelphia as a nice streamer option here these last couple days.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. I'm going to go forward in Philadelphia because I want to talk about Kevin Hayes. Now, here's a player who I would call due, still getting top 6 minutes, top power play billing, or really in Philadelphia, they kind of just roll the 2 units relatively interchangeably, and the players are relatively interchangeable on both units as well. There's no real established thing. Vigneault just sort of is like, I guess it seems very random to me, and I'm inclined to dislike Vigneault, so I'm going to say he just randomly throws a dart at some players and puts them out there. Finally put up a couple of assists in the last 3 games, but otherwise have been pointless for several. Still shooting, still getting decent minutes. I like Kevin Hayes if you're looking for points this weekend.
All right, and one more really low-owned player plug, but I want to talk about him because Elon picked him up and he was kind of feeling bullish on him. Wade Allison is playing with Hayes and Farabee. He's also getting power play 1 deployment. He's got 1 power play goal, 10 shots, 10 hits in 3 games so far. So an extremely deep cut there for you to potentially take a look at as a guy who is getting a shot with top 6 minutes and top power play minutes.
Would you take him over Cousins?
No, give me Cousins first, I think.
Would you take him over, who did you say in Boston again?
DeBrusk. Yeah, I think I would take Allison over DeBrusk.
I would play matchups, and you know what? I can't help but notice that Sunday night game against Jersey coming up. We saw New York light up the Devils last week, and now we're seeing Pittsburgh do the same. 12 goals in the last 2 games. I can't help but think that that New Jersey is a league winner if you have a bunch of Penguins this week, or if you have some Philadelphia Flyers going up against Jersey on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes for a very appealing matchup. Those guys can't stop a beach ball right now, so get after them.
All right, well, Lewis, that's all the time that we have for tonight. I think we have at least one more show planned. I'm not sure what we're going to do to finish out the Short Shift season, but I look forward to seeing you next week, my friend. And so for myself, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Why don't you sign us out of here?
All right, well, I will avoid any further jinxing by talking about Ben's matches, but we'll see how things have wrapped up when we get in there next week. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Best of luck winning this round of your playoffs. If you are still in there, please be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at ShortShiftsKK. You've got Brian and Elon at Keeping Karlsson, Dave Betton of the Stream Scheme at NHL Stream Scheme. Visit the sites where we research our episodes at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, Natural, Statric, and Cupful.com. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach, and until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.